my gosh. Oh my God.
It's only been 17 years. So,
Well, it's 29, 29. So what is that?
a long time.
It's ringing a bell, but you know.
So how many years was that?
4 months.
4 months? Oh.
Yeah, I was in Lakewood, and then I went to Riverton and Burlington.
Alright.
So yeah, holy smokes.
Yeah. I looked at you with the name, I'm like, okay. And the laugh.
Perfect timing.
My daughter says my daddy knows everybody.
It's okay with doing Orlando.
I shouldn't talk about it all the
Are you gonna keep this brief?
Dave Mark is on the chief.
Good to meet
Welcome.
you.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the new chief.
Yeah. How
Well,
are you?
I have to get myself fingerprinted because I'm
Okay.
a chaplain.
You got it? Okay. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm state certified, so.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you. If you haven't yet, Eric in the back, our community relations, she'll take care of you. You need to
Yeah.
just see her.
We're doing well. I've connected with all the.
Oh, good. Welcome. I look forward to working
But
with you.
yeah, absolutely.
Good evening. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance and please remain standing for the invocation by Canon Richard Reed of the St. John Episcopal Church. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's my honor and privilege to be here for the first time, having been at St. John the Evangelist Church for the last 4 months or so. And it's a particular honor to be here as we celebrate the 325th anniversary of the township. The Episcopal Church has been in New Jersey only 10 years longer. It's 335 years. We came with the English proprietors in 1685. So I'm delighted to be here. Of course, St. John's has only been here for 231 years. So, but we got to start somewhere. And what I'm going to pray tonight is a prayer that was being prayed back then, that came over the ocean with us, and that we continue to pray today, although we're not praying for the King or Queen of England anymore, which is probably a relief right now. And I apologize because I'm using something modern. Almighty God, who hast given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech thee that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of thy favor and glad to do thy will. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought hither out of many kindreds and tongues. Endue us with the spirit of wisdom, and especially to those to whom thy name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to thy law we may show forth thy praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in thee to fail. All of which we ask through your most holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Ken and Reed, and welcome to our community. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's good to see you again, too.
Quick story, Richard and I were in a program 17 years ago called Leadership New Jersey, where we traversed the state of New Jersey and learned about government, education, health and human services, the environment, the arts. And I haven't seen him since December of 2003. So,
Right.
And I saw your name and your face, and I recognized you. So welcome to our
Thanks.
community.
Thank you
and
very
thank you
much.
for being here this evening.
I couldn't be more delighted to be here. Thank you, sir.
Take care. Commencement stated. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of the meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designates the time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using electronic amplifying and recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record, and we request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly to the microphone. The recording device is to solely be utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of the minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison,
He is running late.
Mr. Owens,
Present.
Mrs. Stubbs,
She is ill.
Mrs. Winters. Here. Mr. Mignon,
Here.
Mrs. Strato. Here. Mr. Mercado,
Present.
Mr. Carlemere.
Here.
Mr. Curtis,
Mr. Cardis is ill.
Mr. Lechner,
Here.
Chief Harkins,
Here.
Mr. Chadwell.
We'll now have our first public portion. This is for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to address council may speak one time. There is a 15-minute time period with 3-minute intervals for each speaker. Mr. Heimbaugh.
Good evening, Pete Heimbaugh, Morningstar Court.
Good evening.
I have a couple of agenda questions. First one is related to Resolution 32. Just from memory, I think we had Brian shared service agreements with more towns than just the one in past years. Is that true? Do you know?
Yes, I believe Pine Hill was a township we had a Bryan agreement with. As you see, Mr. Carson's not here, but off the top of my head, I believe Pine Hill was one of the townships we have a Bryan agreement with.
As they come in, Council President, some of them will come in as groups. We can do it one resolution, but some come in later. I know there's been negotiation with the city of Camden also. That has not been finalized as yet.
So there may be more coming in over
So when
time.
that
Okay.
comes in, the agreement is appropriate, then you'll see a resolution for a similar shared service agreement with the city of Camden.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Carmer.
I did send Mr. Cardis an email with a couple questions in advance of this meeting, so we could get those answered, and he's not here. So one was related to not even the bill list, so I'll just hold that one or send it to Miss Eric or something like that later. Second question I had was related to Resolution 30. Let's see, we're changing the project amount on the Cherrywood Road project. And this question was for Mr. Cardis, and I sent an email. Do we know what the original budget amount was, capital project budget amount was for this project?
Well, this project has been ongoing for many years. There's several phases.
Well, Phase 8, I'm referring to.
Exactly. So we're adjusting that roughly $49,000. Mr. Chadwell, is there anything you want to add to that?
Originally it was budgeted for, I believe, 350,000. That was an all-in number, so minus the fees. When we got it out to bid, I think we had it around 250,000, and then the bids came lower, I think just below 200,000.
So we borrowed $350,000 for this Phase 8 project. That was the capital project amount, so we would have borrowed $350,000 to pay for this project. And how much have we spent, counting this 199 out of that 350,000 that we borrowed, how much have we spent?
I don't have an accounting for that. I'm sorry.
Fair.
I can find that answer.
Well, I can follow up with Mr. Cardis,
Okay.
he's the appropriate one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You did have a question regarding the boiler. Is that regarding cost?
I didn't submit a question regarding the boiler.
Yeah, you did. Okay, it was regarding, $28,000 check in the bill list.
Oh, yeah, that was my bill list question. Yeah.
Yes. So Academy Hall has a boiler that was installed in 1985. Public Works went out there at the end of October, and they realized that the boiler was sinking into the foundation. So they had to replace that. It was scheduled to be put in the 2020 capital budget. They kept the place warm, as you well know, main stage is in there. So they kept the place warm by using space heaters for 2 weeks to maintain the heat in the building to prevent further damage. But that's that $28,000 cost.
Well, my question was regarding we charge it, it was an emergency repair type item according to the bill list, but we charge it to a capital project. That was my
But it
question.
was scheduled to be included in the capital improvement projects for 2020.
For 20, so this is a 2020 project, capital project, or?
But it was scheduled. I can get more clarification from Mr. Cardis.
All right.
Okay.
I'll be glad to follow up myself with Mr.
Thank
Curtis.
you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the first public portion. Consent agenda, mayor's appointments.
Two 2020 planning board appointment for a 4-year term, Patrick Thomas as class 4.
I entertain a motion.
Make that motion?
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mignone?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, we have our resolutions, a consent agenda. Any council member that would like to have any item removed from the consent agenda, please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. I'll make that motion. Thank you, Mr. Mignone. Thank you, Mrs. Winters. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Owens?
I need to abstain on resolution R 2001-025. Item number 20-0079, invoice 4172065, invoice 4172518, invoice 4171486, and invoice 4171497. And yes to everything else.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mignone?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. We did not receive any GT eGov access emails. We'll now open up our second public portion. There is a maximum time of 30 minutes on our second public portion. Each speaker is entitled to 5 minutes. They may have one time addressing council, and after everyone else has spoken, they may come again and speak for a second time, only if it's adding to their earlier, if it's different than their earlier statements. I'll open up the public portion. Anyone wish to speak, please raise your hand. Ms. Coyne.
Denise Coyne, Choose Landing Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. My question, I guess, is for Mr. Lechner. I would like to know if pilot tax abatements are only available for redevelopment areas?
Mr. Lechner, normally that's a question directed towards our tax
I don't know if that's
assessor.
the answer. I mean, if they are allowed in redevelopment areas, but I don't know if that's the only law that allows it. That's for the current area.
There's the 5-year phase-in is pretty much a general ordinance. If there is a improvement to the structure, the abatement goes on the improvement only. It's a new development, business structure, the abatement can apply to the improvement again only. And
That's for 5
You
years.
see that pretty general. The long-term abatements are pilot programs, they're usually redevelopment areas. But the normal, the 5-year phase-in, that's pretty common.
Okay, so am I correct in thinking that the pilot, the difference between the 5-year and the pilot is the pilot, you can have a longer term tax abatement?
Well, usually it's used interchangeably. You hear people indicate the pilot program is a phase in 5 years, or the pilot program is a long-term tax abatement. But, it's,
What's the longest term that you could have with the pilot?
I think it's 30 or 31.
Normally 30 years. We do have, off the top of my head, we have a pilot agreement with a religious organization in town, Jehovah's Witnesses on Orr Avenue, that they make payments to the township in lieu of taxes.
All right, and Franklin
And that has
Square
been
does
going
also.
on, and that has been going on. I think that agreement is
Yeah,
30 years.
Yeah, they vote periodically as others can come in for requests for renewals. Nonprofits, those type of organizations, you usually see that come in with longer term.
Okay, well, it's my understanding though, that the redevelopment areas for businesses to come in, one of the incentives is for them to have a longer term tax abatement, longer than the 5 years. So for a business coming in a redevelopment area, typically how long of a tax abatement would they be eligible for?
In my time here, we haven't granted anything more than 5 years for a business.
But they're eligible for longer, correct?
Well,
I would imagine they can. I mean, I haven't researched that statute. So if someone comes in for it, I'm sure the assessor would reach out to me and give me his comments on that issue. But I don't remember anything, as the council president said, more than a 5-year phase-in abatement.
Okay, so then what would be the draw of having the redevelopment area if they don't get a longer term tax abatement? What would be the difference between that and just a normal rehabilitation area?
It's who's ever coming in, it's the application. The application is on the developer, whether it's a 5-year or a longer term. They make their application at different stages, goes through the tax assessor with the authority for a recommendation to the governing body for approval. As long as it's in compliance with the statutory requirements and the ordinance, it's usually approved. But I've never seen anything more than 5 years that I can recall. I know Ken Lechner has any comment for longer than that, but I don't recall any longer than a 5-year phase.
yeah, not in our municipality. When I used to work in Camden Redevelopment Agency, we had projects that were 30-year pilots. But we have
Okay.
not granted that here in the time I've been here.
All right, I was asking because I recall Mr. Lechner saying that we wanted to do a redevelopment area because it was a better incentive for businesses to come here because they wanted the longer term tax abatements. So I'm wondering what that has to do with the redevelopment area, if they could get that same tax incentive in someplace that's not a redevelopment area. That's what's confusing to me.
I can't respond to that. I mean, it's the philosophy of how it's approached. I can't answer that.
All right. And then my last question is, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Does an area have to be a rehabilitation area in order to have a redevelopment plan, in order to do a redevelopment study, in order to have a redevelopment area?
Mr. Lechner. So,
I'm
yeah,
not sure I understand the question. Did you ask it?
you need a
Yes.
rehabilitation. Go ahead.
I'm referring to a statement that you also made regarding because the township has been determined, the whole township has been determined to be an area in need of rehabilitation that allows you to do redevelopment plans and basically a redevelopment study anywhere in the township for the whole entire township.
I'll try to answer. Try to be more specific. Because Gloucester Township is determined to be in a township-wide, to be in a rehabilitation area, that allows the town to adopt a redevelopment plan. However, it's not a redevelopment area, but if the town enters into a redevelopment study, which we're doing on the Black Horse Pike for a redevelopment area, and it's determined to be a redevelopment area, we can also adopt a redevelopment plan for the redevelopment area. And if we do adopt a redevelopment plan in a redevelopment area, that redevelopment plan could have a lot of different things. It could have a payment in lieu of taxes for 30 years. It could have affordable housing. It could have we could designate areas for condemnation. So,
And the township makes those designations, controls what happens, correct?
for,
For the redevelopment plan,
Yeah,
for the
it's-
redevelopment area.
we adopted, the council will adopt an ordinance that outlines how these lanes would be developed. It's similar to a zoning ordinance, which a lot of people are familiar with, but depending on how the redevelopment plan is prepared, it could have a lot of things in it. It could have the pilots, and so choose to know we wanted to designate certain properties for a pilot. I think we have the ability to do that. We could establish architectural standards.
So essentially, it gives the township a lot more control over the area if it was not a
I think
redevelopment
A
area.
little bit, so, and it allows the town to basically, as I envision it, that when we create a redevelopment plan, it allows the developer to develop according to that plan, and then when they get to the planning board more or less has to approve it from the use perspective. They might have comments on site plan issues, but not so much on variances, setback requirements, or building heights. What happens in some towns, I might be saying going too long, but what we want to not, I think, have happen is we go through the trouble of adopting a redevelopment plan, and then applications go to the planning board and they deny it for some reason because there's a setback variance. So we try to resolve those issues in the actual plan. So when it gets to the planning board's looking at the things the planning board usually does, which is site plan issues, stormwater management, roads, site lighting, traffic.
But not zoning issues. You could change the zoning issues without
Yeah.
requesting the
It's
variances.
not really a zoning. It's like zoning, but it's not redevelopment.
You can't change the zone issue though unless it goes back for a revision to the plan.
Yeah.
Whatever, as it goes through the planning board for the study of an area need of redevelopment or rehabilitation, if they determine that it does, then there's a professional engaged that develops the plan. Once the governing body adopts that plan, and a developer comes in and goes before the planning board does not have jurisdiction to grant variances or waivers of anything. It's usually pretty much standard as Mr. Lecter was
That's what
indicating.
we've done historically. If somebody wants to do something in the redevelopment area where we don't specifically list the use, we have them amend the redevelopment plan to add that use, if council so chooses to add that use.
Okay, so
But when you read the redevelopment, there's some debate professionally amongst planners and other lawyers, professionals in the field, that when you read the statute for local redevelopment and housing law, the zoning board of adjustment isn't mentioned. So it gives, in my opinion, it gives the implication that you can't go to the zoning board for a use variance, even though, however, there's been some case law that has allowed it.
okay,
Thank you,
so
Mr. Lecter. Ms. Coyne, your time's,
okay, thank you.
you're way over. Thank you. Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro from the Historic Village of Ariel. As you guys know, I've been recording from the back as set forth by the guidelines, and I've always followed so. I think it might be time, second microphone we put up, when officials are asked a question. I can't hear, let alone the camera pick up the audio on speakers that are here. The chief has always spoke loud enough for us to hear. Chuck Palumbo is good and vocal, but Mr. Lechner and there are other people that speak. It's very, very hard to hear and sometimes comprehend. So maybe consider another microphone where the public can hear the response being asked by public, or maybe have them come up to the microphone. It'd be fair to those of us that have to be in the back.
Mr. Lecter's a soft-spoken native of Cumberland County, and so.
I did not want to put it in such a fashion. It's just extremely difficult to hear. And maybe consider one more standing
Sure, we
microphone.
can probably throw the mic over there. We could accommodate that.
You want me to repeat everything?
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Planning 101 over here. Anyone else? Mr. Krug?
Good evening, Township Council.
Good evening.
Paul Krug, Blackwood. Tonight, I present the third and final part of a narrative that began at the December 9th meeting regarding redevelopment efforts of Blackwood, specifically downtown. It's fitting that this part falls into the new year as the subject matter is about moving forward. But in order to move forward, we have to understand where we've come from. At the December 9th meeting, I brought raw qualitative feedback from the community on the Blackwood Arts District. I compared ambition versus reality, imagery of the village of Gloucester Township, and presented a partially finished 15-year-old Blackwood West redevelopment plan. From this, it's reasonable to deduce that at a minimum, there's a lack of clearly defined mission, but more importantly, where a mission statement and goals are defined, there's a lack of successful execution. So in the December 23rd meeting, I tried to establish how this council provides representative oversight of the project initiatives and their associated goals, specifically the companies and organizations responsible for the day-to-day execution. While council members obfuscated, Mr. Lechner was able to point me to the Blackwood West redevelopment plan for concrete goals. Unfortunately, when asked about the implementation status of those goals, no answers were able to be provided. That brings us to tonight's topic of moving forward with the understanding that we have had shortcomings in project execution. Based on personal experience and empirical evidence, I believe we must practice results-based leadership, which in my opinion begins with the representative body of the citizens fully assuming the responsibility of the Blackwood initiatives, followed by clearly defining the mission and the expectations, with a strong emphasis on results and execution by the day-to-day operators, constantly adapting to the situations at hand and establishing strong feedback loops from the community and industry, while eliminating redundancy and establishing disciplined processes. That's how I would approach things. I asked council how they plan to approach the Blackwood initiatives in 2020.
Well, thank you for your comments and for the third part of your narrative. I haven't taken a look at, other than when you come here to address council, on that 15-year-old plan. If you take a look at when that plan or study was created, so you go back 15 years ago, 2005, a few years later after that, our country and our township entered into a recession. And a lot of the development that was taking place in our community and redevelopment came to a screeching halt. At the time, I was on the planning board, and Mr. Lechner serves as a secretary to the planning board. There were times that we had 2 meetings a month, and we were here till 11 o'clock at night reviewing different projects and plans throughout the township. When you talk about the lack of successful projects or successful execution, that is a guide that we use for that particular area. We have worked with businesses along that corridor to hold their feet to the fire, to adhere to plans, whether it was sidewalk improvements, lighting, aesthetics, parking, wayfinding signs. Those are things that I believe they're included in that plan, correct? You review it more often than I do.
There are portions of
Okay,
that are
portions of that,
included, but the
okay.
parking wasn't established, and there's not even parking signs at the library or across from Rite Aid that you can park there, and it's public parking.
But since you've taken so much time to review that, I'm going to take a look at it again. And I think that collectively as council, perhaps, I said this to Mr. Lechner a few months ago. I said, perhaps we should sit down, perhaps at a workshop, and discuss some of the projects and plans or redevelopment areas that we have in town. Because a council also serves as the redevelopment entity, meaning that if there is a project that's going to be taking place in a redevelopment area, that developer has to come in front of the redevelopment entity. And that is our opportunity to make sure or ensure that their project adheres to what we envision for that particular area. So I think that's something that we could move forward and work together in 2020. So thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking a look at this and council taking a look. If I may request, I realize my time is up, but this would be for the benefit of Ken. In a show of good faith, I did ask several questions about Blackwood West. At the last council meeting, you did request additional time for answers. I wanted to give you that if you had those answers. Otherwise, I can take a seat.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
Okay.
Mr. Lechner?
Just real quick,
Okay.
go to the mic. I haven't had an opportunity to respond to your questions because I believe I did ask you if you could send them to me in an email and I'll be able to address them better. But I just wanted to let you recall that we did pass a budget to study the Blackwood West redevelopment plan. And we are doing that right now through T&M Associates. So now will be the timely to, and if there are any concerns for the public. So you can let them, if you could present them to me and I'll forward them to our planner that's doing the plan.
And a good opportunity to become involved in that process is our workshop meetings, which are not attended for some reason, but that's where a lot of the work goes into putting our agenda forward. And they're always on the first Monday of the month. Thanks, Mr. Lechner. Anyone else? Mr. Sweet.
Sam Sweet from Ariel. Good evening, council.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. At the last council meeting, I touched base on the prior budgets. And so then I went ahead and Oprah'd the budget work papers for 16, 17, 18, and 19, and was denied because it says that the budget documents aren't work documents that are maintained after the budget has been approved. Since then, I came across the state municipality retention schedule, and those work papers and documents are supposed to be kept for up to 6 years. So I'm kind of confused as to why my Oprah request was denied.
I had a conversation with the clerk. I don't recall the exact Oprah request. If my memory is serving me, you were asking for work notes of members of council or the business administrator. You weren't asking for the documents. Let me finish. You weren't asking for documents. If they were documents such as the budget itself, they would be maintained, but work product, once the budget is approved in its form that's required to be kept, usually notes that I see that float around in discussions are not kept.
But according to the state retention schedule, they're supposed to be kept.
I don't, you say supposed to be, but I would want to read how that is, whether or not it's referring to what I'm talking about.
Okay, and I requested the specific line-by-line budget that's given to the council budget committee
As a word.
for those years.
Not as the final document. Am I correct, Madam Clerk? Is that what we're discussing?
Yes.
So, but the work
If
papers,
you were referring to the introduced budget and the adopted budget, we always have both of those, and that is what council looks at. You said that you were talking about the budget that is brought when they start to look at the budget, which that's not something that I give to council.
so, but where are the budget work papers? There are work papers for the budget, correct?
What is your description of work papers?
you have a line item that says office expense, for argument's sake, it says 180,000. I'm making that number up.
That's not something.
Okay, so what makes up those office expense, whether it be paper, pens, coffee cups,
Well, are you
I
asking
don't
just
disagree.
out of the clerk's office, or are you asking in general? Because each office puts together their own proposal, whether it's Mr. Lechner's office or the clerk's office, or they all put together, we need more stationery, we need another fax machine. Those things are all put in, that's the wish list, if you allow that expression, that comes from each department, that goes into their work agenda. I don't recall that being your request, but if that was your request, that's not something that's kept, because they formulate and they discuss, and council discusses at their various sessions, and mayor and business administrator. What is required is probably the documents that you already have. Someone's notes and work agenda, once the budget's done, they're not maintained anywhere.
And those meetings are advertised and open to the public. They're advertised in the newspaper for when the departments are having their budget meetings. Those meetings are not held with me. Those meetings are held in open public meetings that are posted in the Courier Post.
So when those public meetings are held, and if the council wants a department head to attend, pick on Mr. Lechner, I want you to attend and tell me why, and explain why you need certain amount of dollars for items. You're at that meeting and everyone hears the discussion because it's an open public meeting. But it's not necessary that his notes now become public format, that it's records that keep, because there are not records that are kept.
why aren't they kept?
Because
Isn't that,
his notes, and this is how I'm.
but isn't that public record?
It's all his discussion and my discussion if it's my department. And that's all done in an open public meeting as to why I want another copy machine or another fax machine or a scanner or something in my office, postage or whatever that goes into my department's budget. But it's my presentation to the governing body, and they formulate it into how they're going to approve it. And that's the document that's becomes the work document that's kept. Individually, as I understood what you're asking for, is not something that's subject to open.
And the document that you have right there, the guidelines, can you supply that to the clerk? And maybe check on that document, specifically what you want. Let's see if we can supply it.
I can supply that to the clerk.
Sorry, Sam. Your time's up.
Is anybody else going to speak?
I don't know, I'm gonna open it up. Is there anyone wish to speak? Mr. Krug?
I just want to say thank you, Ken, and I'll follow up with questions and concerns from the Blackwood West redevelopment plan. Also, just wanted to better understand the agenda for the workshops and what's covered in those, because I would be interested in attending if it'd be helpful to council and the project initiatives.
Mostly, the agenda that we have is, we put it together, the different department heads forward information to us. And that's when we discuss various projects. Like, for instance, if anyone has sat in any of our workshop meetings over the years, we have talked about the Cherrywood project at length. When there's different change orders for different projects, that's discussed there as well. If we're going out for a study or presenting a new ordinance or resolution, that's something that's discussed at our workshop as well. So it's more work than here. This is more just passing our resolutions and ordinances.
Sure. Would it be something that potentially you could invite me to if something pertaining these initiatives was to be on the docket, or is it something I need to show up to every month just in the chance?
Well, I don't
that
know
we'll
if I
talk
would
about
send
that?
you a formal invitation, but we're here every Monday, the first, second, and fourth of the month.
I'm just trying to understand if it'd be constructive for me to attend.
Well, the agenda is always posted Thursday evening, the latest Friday morning, and the agenda is posted for all our meetings, workshops, and the regular meetings. So
Okay. Are there
if you
any
see
other
something-
ways?
So if you see something that is of interest to you, you're more than welcome to attend this meeting.
Okay. And then I know you mentioned the planning board as well. Is that something that can be attended? And
Oh, absolutely. Planning board meets the second and fourth still, second and fourth Tuesdays of the month here at 7:30.
7 p.m.
Oh, I'm sorry, you moved it up, sorry.
I didn't know.
Oh, Councilman, I was the chairman, you moved it up. You want to get home early? Okay.
And can I ask what the agenda topics and the objective of that meeting are?
New projects in town, development projects, expansion of particular projects. Scott, you want to chime in when you were chair, some of the things that?
I'm trying to think. Site plan reviews, little of everything. You really get a good feel for what's coming into the township. But bulk C variances, Ken?
The planning board deals with commercial development, site plan development, major subdivisions, minor subdivisions of land, and the zoning board of adjustment deals with variances for residential properties, mostly, and use variances. But our agendas are also posted online the Thursday of the week or Friday, depending on the IT person doesn't get it posted.
Is there a meeting tomorrow night?
There is a reorganization tomorrow night where we will reorganize our board.
So it's a quasi judicial board. It's actually applicants will come in and present their application to the board. The board will rule on whether or not there's any waivers or variances and the control that they're meeting the ordinance standards and the development standards state of New Jersey. I'm sure Mr. Can respond to it a lot more thoroughly than I can. I mean, it's not just a government body sitting there and evaluating. There's an applicant with their experts and professionals giving testimony under oath to the board. There's public that can object to it or support it.
There's renderings that provided of different projects. The biggest project, when I was on planning board, the biggest project was the outlets. And that was something that the planning board, we were intimately involved in that process. But a lot of these different projects that have taken place over the years, Mr. Hutchinson is now our liaison on the planning board. So when you attend those meetings, you're privy to information that most other residents aren't. It's just because you're aware of what's being presented there. Now, a lot of these projects sometimes are approved and, sometimes they're not shovel ready. And, there's a particular project that was approved in the late 2000s and we're here 10, 11 years later and that still hasn't started yet.
I'll take a look at the agendas and see maybe where I could best contribute. Just want to make clear, the way this is kind of set up, it feels like a me and you, but really it's a we. And I'd like to participate in seeing what I've narrated over the last 3 meetings come to fruition. And I'm not afraid of action to help out. So I'd definitely like to be a part of it. If you can include me in anything, appreciate it. I think you all have my emails. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 10 seconds left in the public portion. Mr. Sweet, but by the time you make it up, I'll let you ask your question, but you're the last speaker of the evening.
Sam Sweet from Ariel. Process of the budget, when it's presented to council, it comes from the mayor's office, correct?
Yes, it's introduced at a meeting, and then we have 30 days, usually 30 days to adopt it from that meeting.
So
When it's introduced.
When it's introduced. All right, but that comes from the mayor's office and Mr. Cardis.
Yes.
So he goes to each individual office, Mr. Lechner's office, Mr. Carlemer's office, saying, what do you need? And things like that. Where does he get his numbers from? Where does the mayor's office get the
I
numbers
think
from?
there is department, and correct me if I'm wrong, for those who oversee departments here, that there are department meetings that are held with the business administrator and the mayor, and they present their budgets and their requests.
And then he compiles it and then presents it as a total line item to council.
We're presenting, not a total line item. I will say, I'm not going to tell you if Chief Harkins is asking for X amount of pencils. I'm not looking at X amount of pencils. I look at, he's looking for office supplies And then there may be a question, oh, what is he asking? Why does he need $1 million in office supplies?
So my question then is, I'm not asking how many pencils or how many, bullets or anything like that, but if the total pencils or the total office supplies or total police supplies or total lawyer supplies, do you get that breakdown? How do I get to see that breakdown?
I get the total request if Chief Harkins has X amount of dollars for office supplies.
Okay, so how do I request that? Because his office supplies, Mr. Carlemer's office supplies, I'm just gonna say Mr. Owens, let's say he has a department, he has office supplies, Mr. Lechner needs office supplies. So you have office supplies for 4 different offices that total one item, but it could be, Mr. Carlemer could be using 90% of it, as opposed to the other 3 offices. How do I get that breakdown, that specific breakdown of what makes up all of the office supplies for all of Gloucester Township?
Well, I think that was the request that you were looking for earlier in your opening
Yes,
request.
so,
You're looking for, Mr. Carlemer says, I need $1,000 in toner, and I need this. That's what you're looking for.
well, but you just said
For
that,
supply. I get the total amount of supplies that his department, the law office needs, that Department of Community Planning needs,
Yep.
that the tax assessor's office needs, that the police chief needs. That's what I receive, that the clerk receives. I get the total amount of supplies.
okay, so then your total
But I
report,
don't get line item,
okay,
I'm
so
told-
that total amount, that's what I meant with line item, but you get total office supplies, but it's broken down by Mr. Carlemer,
Each
Mr. Owens, Mr. Lechner, by department. So what do I have to ask then to see that budget by department? Is that what I'm asking for?
I don't know,
but-
that's what you're asking for, what's submitted to Tom.
Like, I'm asking to see the budget that you get that you have to review,
The budget that I get is I get office supplies.
but a breakdown by
Office
different,
supplies, $5,000. Okay, but it's under each different department. I get a budget that tells me this is what's requested from the Department of Community and Planning. And they go through their different projects. I get Chief Harkins, 17-page budget request. No, but I get his budget. Okay, I get the clerk's budget. I get the mayor's, the administration's budget. I get Rec's budget, the law office, but that's what I receive.
okay, so how do I
I'm
get?
not saying
Not-
that he needs X amount of
I'm not
pencils.
asking for that $1,000 line.
I don't get
No.
that. It doesn't make its way to me.
So how do I get what you get? What do I have to
I'm
ask?
telling you what I get. I don't get that. I'm not interested in finding out that he needs.
No,
$1,000
I'm asking,
Sam, I'm answering your question. I don't get that.
I'm asking to review what you actually get.
Can I look into that for you?
Sure.
If you want, okay. I will help you to achieve
What is provided to you?
We get,
I didn't see your Oprah request. I don't look at Oprah requests. They don't get forwarded to me. What did you ask for?
specifically,
And keep it concise because you're over time. Go ahead.
I specifically asked for the specific line-by-line budget item that is given to the council budget committee for 16, 17, 18, and 19.
What's given to council?
What's given to the council budget committee, because there's a council budget committee, correct?
Okay. There are times that we meet as a subcommittee. It's basically the budget that's presented to us the day of the meet when the business administrator presents the budget to us. That's what we receive.
That's exactly what you receive. You don't get but you just told me.
I do not get line item by line item of their request. I don't get Chief Harkins' request, Mr. Carlemer's request. I don't receive that. I don't get their notes. You're looking for those. I don't have notes.
No, I'm not,
That's what you asked for earlier. And that's what you're trying to get to. I don't have notes. We don't have notes.
You look for a detailed ledger.
I'm looking for, you have office expenses from 4 different departments. You get one line, we get one line item that says office expenses, let's just say $10,000, of which that breakdown, I don't get that breakdown of what, if 5,000 of it is for, not detail, but 5,000 of office expenses, Mr. Carlemer's. 3,000 is Chief Harkins, 2,000 is Scott Owens, and 1,000 is Lechner's, Mr. Lechner. You get that detail of what makes up the total office expense, correct? You just said you did.
I understand your question. I guess I'm not telling you what you want to hear. I don't have notes. I don't have.
I'm not asking for the notes.
Okay.
Okay,
You're
I'm-
asking what I get.
What
You
you,
want to have that.
You
Okay?
get, and I apologize if I'm
Mike,
misunderstanding
I
you.
receive a budget.
You receive a budget that says office expense, $10,000.
I get a budget and it's broken down by different departments.
So then how do I get that budget? Because the budget that we get as a public when we come here says office expense. It's not broken down into by department.
But I hear, I have to respond looking at it as an open request. So what I hear is your presentation just tonight in various different formats. And what you're asking for is not a required document to be kept, and it's a document that is not kept. If there's a document that is kept, then you're entitled to it under Okra. But if it's not a required document, then you can't say, government, you should be keeping this. If it's not a required document, it's not what they call it's not operable because it's not mandated to be kept. So what you seem to be asking for is, as I understand it, is work product that the different department heads write down in pen and ink or whatever and submit it. Those documents go through the business administrator and they might get tossed out because he puts it in a different format. And then he has a document, a budget presentation, but not everybody's notes that are being discussed.
Okay.
So those things are not, and you asked for it for 16, 17, and 18. They're just not documents that are kept. That's why those hearings are all public. If the council is doing a public hearing or a process with a particular department, they're all public because that's where the discussions are.
Ms. Power had asked to comment, and then we'll end up our public portion.
I went as far as just because I'm basically new in the position for a couple of years, even though I've been here for over 20. I actually went back year to year with all the budgets that we have in the office and in the safe to see if there were any other documents that you may be referencing, that there may be another worksheet that I wasn't privy to, that I'm not at budget hearings. And in every folder, there was the introduced budget, there was the budget that is received from the state, and then there was the receipted final adopted budget. And they're the ones that I have in my possession in the budget folders. So I did go back several years to see if there was anything else in those files and in back council agendas, and there were no worksheets.
Okay. Thank you.
For that, we'll close our second public portion. Calling the directors.
Mr. Garlemire,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Lechner,
I have nothing to report.
Chief Harkins,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Chadwell,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hutchison,
Thank you very much for coming out.
Mr. Owens,
Thanks for coming out this evening. Happy New Year to everyone. Congratulations to my council colleagues. I missed the reorganization meeting due to work obligation. So officially, congratulations. And to all of our professionals for coming back. Congrats. Chief Harkins, thanks to the men and women of the police department, and then all of our first responders as always. This June 2020 marks the 325th anniversary since Gloucester Township was incorporated in 1695. The township has a bunch of activities planned throughout the year. First one is a parade that's scheduled for Saturday, March 2nd, rain date of May 9th. The second event is a time capsule burial, which will be Saturday, June 13th at Gabriel Davies Tavern. And then there'll also be an attempt to break the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest bucket brigade. Bucket brigade, it was a method used for firefighting before hand-pumped fire engines, in which firefighters would pass buckets one next to each other to extinguish the blaze. We are looking for 6,500 volunteers to line up on Saturday, September 12th. So if you know anyone, have everyone come out. It'll be a great community event. I'm sure more information will be sent out as we near that. And lastly, the township contracted with Recycle Coach. It's Recycle Coach. It's a application for the phones to help our residents within the recycling realm. It has personalized garbage and recycling calendar for all residents based on address, a database that explains what is and what is not recyclable, and local disposal information for thousands of household items, so you know where to recycle them if it's not part of your recycle day. So it's a free app. It's called Recycle Coach. I have it on my phone. I've already been playing around with it. It's actually really, really cool. And it's free to download as well. So congrats, as always, to the township for thinking outside the box.
Mrs. Winter?
That it, thank you.
You're welcome. It's been a
I
while.
want to thank everyone for coming out and just let people know that today the state of New Jersey passed what's known as Lindsay's Law. And it was introduced by Senator Beach. And what it does is it's for organ donors. So if you're doing a live donation, it used to be, and I'm sure for a period of time until it's all figured out, that the donor had to take some of that expense for testing and different things like that. So they passed Lindsay's Law today. It was unanimously voted on. And that now expense will not be passed on to the donor. So it will be absorbed through the process. And also, I believe as part of it, and I'm not 100% sure the details of it, if you're a public employee, some of that recuperation time will be given to you and you won't have to use your personal time and all those kind of things. So it was a family member of his that was affected by this and received a kidney. And I just happened to be part of the whole process as a friend of the family. So it's a wonderful thing because hopefully we can increase donations throughout the state because there aren't enough donors. And a lot of it is due to people not being able to afford to donate because of the losses that you have to incur. So that is a wonderful thing that happened in the state of New Jersey today. Thank you.
Mr. Mignon?
Just to add to what Councilman Ms. Winter said, this green band supports donor donation, part of that in our hospital also. And on January the 8th, it was National Donor Day in Pennsylvania. The hospital works in Pennsylvania. And the reason why they picked January 8th, 1/8 is because one donor can save 8 lives. Otherwise, thank you for coming out. Everybody have a great night.
Mrs. Strato?
Thank you. Have a great night.
Mr. Mercado?
Thank you for coming out this evening. Next Monday is Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day of Service here in Gloucester Township. We have close to 30 projects that will emanate out of Charles W. Lewis School and throughout the township. The program starts at 9:15, and then projects start at 10 o'clock and will conclude by noon. If anyone is interested, anyone is watching out there, you can register on the township website, glowtwip.com. Again, that is available to all our residents, and there's people that come outside our community that participate in that project. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a great evening, everyone.
You too.
I'll give you a ride.
I'll be there.
What?
You can't get
You make the root beer barrel.
Good night.
Oh, that's great. I gotta confirm. I hear you.
Good night, Michelle.
I know. To make some news. It's great.
It's a wonderful thing. Yeah. Yeah. It was actually, well, it was on Facebook today. I saw it posted today. The donor, not for the family member that I know, went up with him to the hospital.